Life can change in an instant. One phone call, one diagnosis, one unforeseen event can turn our worlds upside down. This is a story from Antalya, Turkey. A story of profound loss, inexplicable comfort, and the resilient human spirit that finds light even in the darkest of times. My name is Saibal. I was 35. I was a healthcare worker. I lived in a small town called Krikikul with my husband, also in healthcare, and our precious 5-year-old son. My husband, who grew up in a state home, was deeply loved by my family, and he loved them back. We spent our summers with my parents in Antalya. One evening in January, we received a phone call. It was my aunt. Saibal, your parents had an accident. They're injured, but don't worry. The accident happened when they were returning home from a mosque after Friday prayers. Their car skidded on the wet roads and turned over several times, but don't worry. The ambulance is already on its way to take them to the hospital. As soon as I hung up the phone, I felt an ominous premonition in my heart. I knew something was terribly wrong. However, my husband immediately reassured me. It's all right, Saibal. Your parents are strong. They'll be fine. With that, we set out for my hometown, a coastal town in Antalya. When we got there, we found a large crowd gathered outside our home. My aunt embraced me and tears streamed down her face. I felt a chill run through my body, and I knew in my gut that my parents were gone. Despite the shock, my husband made sure I didn't hear the full truth right away. Instead, he gently informed me that both of my parents had passed away on the spot. I still remember that moment vividly. The vibrant faces of my parents, their warm smiles and loving eyes now replaced by an eternal silence. The pain was overwhelming. I felt as if someone had ripped a piece of my soul away. How could I go on without my mom's comforting hugs and dad's wise guidance? In the following year, I struggled to find joy in anything. I missed my parents every waking moment. It felt as if their absence had created a void in my life that nothing could fill. I forced myself to focus on my son and my marriage, trying to find solace in their love. But the shadow of grief loomed over us constantly. Then, one fateful day, my 5-year-old son turned blue, and his breathing became shallow. After rushing him to the hospital in days of tests, the doctors delivered a devastating diagnosis. Our precious son had leukemia, the most aggressive form. My world shattered. All my hopes, dreams, and aspirations for the future crumbled into dust. My son, my sweet, innocent child, was undergoing chemotherapy. But despite the medical intervention, his condition continued to deteriorate. Just 2 short weeks after the diagnosis, my son passed away. The pain was unbearable. It felt as if someone had plunged a dagger through my heart. I was utterly heartbroken. Life seemed to have no meaning anymore. We ate only to survive. Each day turned into a blurry haze of despair and anguish. I felt so utterly alone, trapped in a prison of grief. My husband, being the pillar of strength that he is, reached out to an old friend from the orphanage where he grew up. Thankfully, the friend, who had risen to become a respected individual in society, offered his support and helped us move to Antalya. We settled into my late mother's 2-story house. I took a leave from work while my husband continued to serve as a healthcare worker. One day, a major earthquake struck Hare. My husband, being a dedicated professional, immediately went to the affected area. Before leaving, he turned to me with a heavy heart. Saibal, he said, it's terrible here. People need me. I could be gone a week, maybe a month. I managed a weak smile and nodded, though my hands trembled. I watched the news footage of the disaster, feeling numb. The images of the destruction and suffering haunted my waking moments. Each passing hour was excruciating as I waited for my husband's return. I found myself spending most of my time in the cemetery where my parents and son were laid to rest. Sitting by their graves, I poured out my grief and longing, seeking solace in their memory. A few days went by and I hadn't heard from my husband. Fear began to gnaw at my heart. Just as I was about to call him again, the phone rang. It was my husband's voice, heavy with exhaustion and despair. "Sybil, it's bad. I'm sorry. The situation here is dire. I've been working nonstop. I'm so sorry I haven't been able to call. I might be away for a while longer." I understood the gravity of the situation. My husband was caught in the midst of a humanitarian crisis, and my selfish thoughts of worry instantly dissipated. A few days later, my husband called again. His voice was raspy and tired. "Sybil, I'm calling because I need you to prepare the downstairs part of the house. 2 families are coming here. One has a 5-year-old boy, the other a 2-month-old baby. Both their houses have been destroyed in the earthquake, and they have nowhere to go. I've talked to them and they're hesitant to come, but they really need help. Please make them feel comfortable. Be strong, Sybil. We'll get through this together." Hanging up the phone, I went downstairs. Suddenly, I was confronted with the painful memories of my son. His cradle, his toys, his clothes. All those tangible reminders of my precious boy brought fresh waves of grief crashing over me. Tears streamed down my face as I hastily tried to organize the space, hoping to make it habitable for the newcomers. I wasn't sure if I could do this. I wanted to tell my husband I wasn't ready, but deep down, I knew he wouldn't understand. There was nothing I could do except try to carry on. As I arranged the beds and tried to infuse the room with a sense of normalcy, the doorbell rang. Opening the door, I was met with a heartbreaking sight. The 2 families stood before me, their faces etched with fear and uncertainty. The sight of the distraught families, especially the little boy who reminded me so much of my own son, was too painful to bear. I forced a smile and welcomed them. "Come in, please come in. I'll help you settle in." For the next few days, our lives intertwined with these earthquake survivors. The woman with the infant baby confided in me, sharing stories of the tragedy and showing me how to soothe the crying baby. The little boy, Tunk, reminded me so much of my son. He was always cheerful, trying to lighten the heavy atmosphere with his innocence. Seeing him reminded me of the son I'd lost, and the pain was almost unbearable. One night as I tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep, I suddenly heard a familiar voice calling out, "Mom." Thinking it was my son, I immediately jumped out of bed and rushed to the garden gate. There he was, my beloved son, standing barefoot, looking up at me with his innocent eyes. "Mom, why are you crying?" he asked, tilting his head in confusion. Overwhelmed with emotion, I ran to him, embracing him tightly. The warmth of his body, the softness of his skin, it all felt so real. "Oh, my son," I whispered, tears streaming down my face, but my joy was short-lived. As quickly as he had appeared, he vanished. I searched frantically, calling out his name, but he was nowhere to be found. Rubbing my eyes, I returned to bed, wondering if it had all been a dream. The next morning, I shared the experience with my husband. He listened intently, his eyes filled with understanding. "Sybil, I believe you," he said softly, "because I saw our son too." He then told me his story. On his first day in Hade, while amidst the treacherous ruins, he was about to step onto a pile of debris when our son appeared, pulling at his shirt. "Dad, get down," our son urged, pulling my husband. My husband instinctively stepped back. 15 seconds later, a second earthquake struck, causing the entire pile to collapse. If I had taken one more step, I would have been buried under the rubble, he said, his voice shaking. Our son saved my life. On the 3rd day, exhausted, he fell asleep in his car. Again, he heard our son's voice. "Dad, be strong. Come." Our son led him, in this vision or dream, to a makeshift tent. Inside, he saw the 2 families who were now living with us. The baby was crying, and Tunk, the little boy, was coughing uncontrollably due to the dust. "Dad," our son said, "take these families to our home." As he woke to the sound of a winch, a mysterious old man in the devastated neighborhood also directed him to the exact street he'd seen in his vision, a street he'd been searching for. The little boy in one of the families, he learned, was named Tunk, the same name our son had often mentioned as a friend. When I heard his story, I cried again, but this time with a different emotion. These weren't just guests anymore, they were family. 4 months passed. Summer arrived, and our garden, once silent, now echoed with children's laughter. The two families felt safe with us, and the children played together joyfully. We rebuilt our lives, cherishing each moment. One Friday, my husband spoke to a local hoka, a religious teacher, after the prayer. The hoka came to visit us, listened to our experiences, and advised us to keep praying. "My daughter," he said, "there are saints, miracles, and wonders in this world. This is one such thing. Keep praying and do not abandon these families." A year has passed since those devastating days. I still see my son sometimes in my dreams. He's always in a beautiful green garden, playing happily with friends. Our family of 2 has become a family of 8. I don't know why these things happened or how, but I know that even in the deepest sorrow, there can be unexplainable comfort, and that love can find new ways to grow. Perhaps some wounds never fully heal, but they can transform us, opening our hearts to new connections and new purposes. My story is one of immense pain, but also of unexpected miracles. Thank you for listening.